Okay, and then just my regular other, I guess you could say secular fiction, because yeah, these are not necessarily Christian fiction, but I would say they're all clean as far as I can remember. But this first one here, Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patty Callahan. I didn't talk about this one, but I did read it in December and I absolutely loved it. I cried. Books don't make me cry, as you all know, I've said before. This one made me cry. It was just so beautiful. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, so these are not at all organized by genre. I think I have these as alphabetical as well, because I'm still trying to figure out how I want to lay out my shelves. But here's a fantasy book, 1,000 Heartbeats by Kiera Cass. Really enjoyed that one. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is also one of my all-time favorite books. I love his writing style. Language warning, and if I remember, there might be a little bit of other mature content, but not a lot. I can't totally remember, but anyway. The Bookshop by Penelope Fitzgerald. That one was a fun, interesting little book. The Princess Bride by William Goldman. What a fun time. And then this is my Poldark series by Winston Graham. I've only read the first one, Ross Poldark. Still trying to decide if I actually want to read the rest of them. Is it worth it? Because I loved the show until it got weird and gross. So I just don't know if the books are the same way. If you've read them, if you love them, give me reasons to read them and not get rid of the series, because they do take up a lot of space and I just don't know if I'm going to read the rest of them. But anyway, we have Ross Poldark, Demelza, Warlegan, The Black Moon, Jeremy Poldark, Four Swans, The Angry Tide, The Stranger from the Sea, The Miller's Dance, The Loving Cup, The Twisted Sword, and Bella Poldark. Okay, We Were the Lucky Ones by Georgia Hunter. This is a novel, but it is based off of a true story. Her family's history, just how a family got separated during the Holocaust and found each other then. It's really sad and heartbreaking, but beautifully written. Joseph Cannon, Leaving Berlin. So this is a novel as well. I'm assuming World War II or post-World War II. Not exactly sure. I haven't read it yet, so there's that one. The Last Bookshop in London by Madeline Martin. Loved this one, and I actually really want to reread it. My goodness. Then Poland by James A. Michener. Everybody, my friends from Poland and other people who have recommended books about Poland, set in Poland, all of that, recommended this one to me and said it's really good, but she's a chunker, so I'm not sure when I'm going to tackle that one. And then Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. Just finished that one recently. I really enjoyed it. Ruta Sepetys, Fountains of Silence. Absolutely love Ruta Sepetys books, but I only own that one and Between Shades of Grey. I want to get more of her books because I love, love, love her writing and the historical aspects of it especially. She puts so much research into her books. And then we have the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. That one's so fun. And then the last ones down here, I have The Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman. I really loved this book. It was very interesting, but it's also heartbreaking, and trigger warnings would be miscarriage and things like that. I don't know. I loved the way the story was written and just the story itself. It touched my heart. And then The Martian by Andy Weir, the classroom edition, because language in the other one, wow. And then The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. And then my two lonely Agatha Christie books. I definitely want to pick up more of her books, but these are the only two that I own. The Miss Marple Complete Short Stories and Murder on the Orient Express. So there we go. That completes my fiction. And then the two little items that I have on this shelf actually is a little acorn cap. I think this one. I've collected a few over the years and I don't actually remember where they're all from, but I believe this one is from Virginia, woods in Virginia. I learned how to whistle with these and I thought that was cool, so I kept it and then I dropped it, but anyway. And then this is just a postcard of a campground that we went to for 20 plus years growing up, almost every year. Not quite every year, but almost growing up, and it just holds so many memories, but it's shut down now, which is very sad for all of us. My aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody would go. And then these are just dried flowers. They kind of fell apart, but it's dried flowers from the campground. But anyway, there's that. Moving on to this next shelf here. This is my mid-grade shelf. And that happened. Eden was here. How can you tell? Anyway. Let me set these up here. These are a few more records, but they're storybook records. Except this one, this is Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, but these are all like record stories. And they are so fun. I love collecting those. These up here are the books that I've read this month so far. Yeah, that's all I have read, except one more Kindle book. Rachel Fordham's The Hope of Azure Springs and 84 Charing Cross Road. Do you want more, baby girl? Mama get you more. And then obviously my record player and candle warmer, because I will not have an actual candle burning by my books. Okay, so it is now the next day. Life happened last night and I just wasn't able to finish the video, so we're gonna quickly do it this morning. And please excuse my voice. I've been fighting a little bit of a head cold all week, and in the mornings especially, my voice sounds a little rough. But yeah, we were on my mid-grade shelf yesterday, so here we go. Oops, now my battery's dying. Let me change that out. All right, here we go. First up, I put like my favorite series and books up on the top shelf, and that's pretty much all the organization I have at this point with my mid-grade. But anyway, starting off with the Chronicles of Narnia series. I have them lined up in this order because that's just how the books are, but I do not read them in this order. No, no, no. I just can't stand having them switched around, like, just to look at. Anyway, yes, The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, The Witch and the Wardrobe, The Horse and Its Boy, Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, and The Last Battle. And then here I have the Wingfeather Saga series by Andrew Peterson. I showed you guys the first book over on the TBR shelf. Next up is North or Be Eaten, The Monster in the Hollows, The Warden and the Wolf King, oh, and a little map of the country there. And then this one is just Wingfeather Tales, just 7 more extra stories from the world there. And then Pax. I love this cover. I love foxes, and I love this book and the next book, Pax Journey Home. Oh my goodness. They melt my heart, and I love the illustrations. Ah, they're just so good. And then A Wolf Called Wander. This one was also fun, and I loved the illustrations in that one. But yeah, it's looking a little empty. And I feel like some of my books are missing, but they're not. I just have a lot more space on my shelves now since I did get the extra one from my friend. And so, yeah, there's just a lot more space, which means I can buy more books, right? Okay, moving down to the next shelf. Here I have the Penderwick's series. I've only read the first 2 books, I believe. Have I actually read the second one? I can't remember, but the first one is The Penderwicks. The next, second one is The Penderwicks on Garden Street. The
Punderwicks on, I can't read, the Punderwicks at Point Newt. I don't know if that's a French word or what, but I can't, yeah, anyway. The Punderwicks in Spring. And then I have The Giver. And then I have Holes. I have not read that one yet. Counting by Sevens. I read this one so many years ago, and I just remember it being sad, but I loved the writing style. But I'm still not sure if I need to read it again to see if it's actually something I would recommend. Book Scavenger, this was one of my favorite mid-grade books from last year. This one was so much fun. I want to get the rest of the series too for that one. And then I do have The Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. I don't own my own copy of the first book yet, but love that series as well. This one is Strawberry Girl. These two books are actually, or these next four books are actually my husband's that he had that we just added to the shelves, but it is Gordon Corman's The Toilet Paper Tigers. I have not read these. No Coins Please. And then, oh sorry, no, these are my books. These are Adventures in Odyssey stories. Lights Out at Camp Whatanut and The King's Quest. And then the first three books of the Imagination Station series, Voyage with the Vikings, Attack at the Arena, and Peril in the Palace. I haven't read those yet either, but I grew up with Adventures in Odyssey, and I love the stories, so I wanted to start collecting some of the books to read them. Next is The Great and Terrible Quest by Margaret Lovett. This was a very fun and interesting book. Although, when I was a teacher, I tried to read it to my students, and they found it a little boring, so that was unfortunate. But I loved it, so I don't know what that says. Next is the Little House on the Prairie series. Little House in the Big Woods, Little House on the Prairie, On the Banks of Plum Creek, Farmer Boy, By the Shores of Silver Lake, The Long Winter, Little Town on the Prairie, These Happy Golden Years, and The First 4 Years. And then next I have these Heroes of the Faith biographies. Sojourner Truth, Martin Luther, and then this one is Free Indeed, African American Christians and the Struggle for Equality. So, there we go. And then next I have more books geared towards animal stories, I guess, on this end of the shelf. The first one is this illustrated book of The Wind and the Willows from Sterling Press. I love these so much. They're so pretty. I have the Jungle Book. Next is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Big Red. I read this one when I was, I don't know, 12 or younger. And I remember loving the story, but I haven't read it since then. But I found the copy at the thrift store, and I wanted to grab one to have here on my shelves so I can read it again. Charlotte's Web. I gotta make sure I'm staying in frame here. Charlotte's Web. Because of Winn-Dixie. Rascal, another one that I read when I was a child, and I want to reread. The Whale of the Wild. Same author as The Wolf Called Wander. The Adventures of Paddington. The Family Under the Bridge. This is a new purchase for me. And then Hatchet. Haven't read those books yet, but anyway. And then my husband's collection of the Hardy Boys series. I will not be going through and reading all of the titles. We just have a few missing from the series. And yes, it bothers me that they're not the same edition, but it doesn't bother my husband, so we're just leaving it. It's fine. I will deal with it. Or maybe I'll slowly switch them out over the years. I don't know. But we have that whole shelf full, and then down here we have the rest of them. And then over here I have the Boxcar Children series, books 1 through 29. And then 40 through 49. So I'm missing the 30s. But I was trying to collect those when I worked at the thrift store, but just didn't quite get all of them. But I also will not be reading off every title. But
there we go. There's my mid-grade shelf. Over here, just on my shelf on the wall, I have my 2 copies of Every Moment Holy by McKelvey. It's from the Rabbit Room Press, Andrew Peterson, and fellow writers and such. These are just a bunch of liturgies. I love those books. They're very beautiful. Over here on my side of the couch where I normally sit this is a journal, and this is my bullet journal from last year, but these are the 2 books that I'm also currently reading, as well as the books on my Kindle. But it's 8 Cousins by Louisa May Alcott and The Dressmakers of Auschwitz. And then over here is my nonfiction shelf. It's a very tall bookshelf. But just up on top, I just have 2 Bibles that I had when I was like a child and teenager. But anyway, so starting on these first shelves are my Christian nonfiction, Christian living, and possibly a few biographies or true stories in this section, but most of it is Christian nonfiction. Okay, let's see if we can do this. It's very tall, and so I'm trying to make sure I keep the books in frame. But this is the Gospel Comes with a House Key by Rosaria Butterfield. Next is The Secret Thoughts of an Unlikely Convert, which is Rosaria Butterfield's conversion story. And then Inexpressible by Michael Card. And this is a book about the word Hesed in Hebrew that describes God and his loving kindness, and it was a beautiful book and I love it and I want to read it again. Next is Orphan Justice by Johnny Carr. Okay, back at it. Baby girl is down for a nap. Okay, I think we were here. Multiply by Francis Chan, and I can't remember the second author's first name. Boving is the last name here. Until Unity by Francis Chan. You and Me Forever by Francis and Lisa Chan. The Everlasting Man by G.K. Chesterton. Let me turn this way. There we go. The Deconstruction of Christianity by Elisa Childers and Barnett. I can't remember his first name, but anyway. Live Your Truth by Elisa Childers. Another Gospel and Elisa Childers. Faithfully Different by Natasha Crane. The Most Reluctant Convert, Downing. That's the C.S. Lewis's conversion story, I believe. The Tale of Three Kings by Edwards is his last name, Gene Edwards. These books are in here really tight. They're very hard to pull out to show you guys. Passion and Purity by Elizabeth Elliot, and then tucked away in here is Let Me Be a Woman by Elizabeth Elliot. Kingdom Woman by Tony Evans. How to Read Your Bible for All It's Worth by Fee and Stewart. Missional Motherhood by Gloria Furman. Mama Bear Apologetics by I can't remember these first names. Why do all of them only have their last names on the spine? Hillary Morgan Farrer. Next is At the Altar of Sexual Idolatry. This is actually one of my husband's books, I believe. I forgot I added some of his to this bookshelf. The Big Book of Bible Difficulties by Geisler and Howe. I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Geisler and Frank Turek. M is for Mama, and Hard is Not the Same Thing as Bad by Abby Halberstadt. The Spirit of Truth by Arthur Kotz and Paul Volk. Timothy Keller's The Reason for God. The Story of Reality by Gregory Kukul. And then Tactics by Kukul. Said his name wrong. C.S. Lewis, A Grief Observed. C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. When Dreams Come True by Eric and Leslie Ludy. Wrestling Prayer. Wrestling Prayer by Eric Ludy. The Brave-Hearted Gospel, Eric Ludy. When God Writes Your Life Story, Eric Ludy. Set Apart Femininity, Leslie Ludy. And The Set Apart Woman by Leslie Ludy. And then When God Writes Your Love Story, Eric and Leslie Ludy. Wow, talk about throwback to my teenage years. Christianity and Liberalism by J. Gresham Machen? I don't know how to say his last name, that's my bad. Safe All Along by Katie Davis Majors. Daring to Hope by Katie Davis Majors. And Kisses from Katie by Katie Davis before she was married. And then 2 books by Felicia Mason-Heimer, Knowing and Believing God's Love and How the Bible Came to Be. God Breathed by Sean McDowell, and then So the Next Generation Will Know by Sean McDowell and J. Warner Wallace. And then coming down here to the next one, Daughter by Deborah Miller. Love Your God with All Your Mind by J.P. Moreland. 3 books by Andrew Murray. They're really thick books. I have not read these yet. I started this one, but they're chunkers and ones that you just kind of slowly make your way through, but I love his writing. This is a book on prayer, the practice of God's presence, and the holiest of all. A short little book by Andrew Murray on humility. Saving Truth by Abdu Murray. This is an ARC that I received years ago when I was on the launch team, I guess, or something. I actually never finished reading it, so that's my bad. But anyway, Enough About Me by Jen Osham. Love Thy Body, Nancy Piercy. Adorning the Dark, Andrew Peterson. She Is Yours by Jonathan and Winter Pitts. Counterfeit Kingdom by Holly Pivick and R. Douglas Guyvett. Radical, David Platt. Follow Me, David Platt. No God But One, Allah or Jesus by Nabil Qureshi. The Insanity of Obedience by Nick Ripkin. I Stand with Christ. This is a true story of the courageous life of a Chinese Christian. The True Crime of Living Cautiously. Then my R.C. Sproul collection, Loved by God. Surprised by Suffering. That one's really good. Mystery of the Holy Spirit. I have not read all of these. The Work of Christ. The Holiness of God. And Knowing Scripture. Really loved this one as well. Trust or Control by Dorcas Stutzman. Uninvited, Lisa Tierkirst. The Pursuit of God, A.W. Tozer. Under Our Skin by Benjamin Watson. He was a football player for the Georgia Bulldogs, which I am a fan of. But I also love his writings, and I follow him on social media too, and I just always appreciated his thoughts on current events and things. William Wilberforce, Real Christianity. Not read that one yet. Surprised by Oxford with Carolyn Weber. Also one of my top favorite books of all time. So good. Here's a book on John by N.T. Wright. Fox's Book of Martyrs. And then here are a few biographies, I guess. No Compromise, The Life Story of Keith Green. Absolutely love this book. I want to read it again. His life is very, very inspirational and convicting. Hero for Humanity. I've not read this one yet, but I love William Wilberforce's story, Amazing Grace by Metaxas. I loved this book, so I found this one as well and wanted to read it and see how it compares. And then Amy Carmichael. I think I read this one years ago, just not this particular copy because this is a new copy for me. All right. This next shelf is more true stories and biographies kind of clumped together with themes. So these first ones are all Christian biographies slash true stories and missionary stories, martyr stories, things like that. So the first one is End of the Spear by Nate Saint, and then Shadow of the Almighty The Life and Testament of Jim Elliot. So these two would have been part of the group of missionaries that were killed by the Waldani many years ago, and their stories. And then I dared to call him Father. I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. That's my bad. I think I would butcher it. Run Baby Run by Nikki Cruz. I've not read this one, but I am familiar with the story, and I wanted to read the book. This one doesn't necessarily belong in this category, so I'm not sure why it's here, but anyway. Dear Senator, a memoir of the daughter of Strom Thurmond. I haven't read that one yet, so I'm not totally sure what that one's about. My Father's Paradise, a son's search for his family's past. Haven't read that one yet. In the Presence of Mine Enemies by Gracia Burnham. These were missionaries that were kidnapped in the Philippines and were held hostage for over a year. I don't think I've read that one yet. There's so many stories that are similar that I can't remember if I actually read them or not. Outrageous Grace by Grace Fabian. I did read this one, and it was an incredible but heartbreaking story. And I actually got to hear her speak in person about her story, working with Wycliffe Associates at one of their banquets, I think, working with Bible translating in other countries. To Fly Again, this is also a missionary story / tragedy. Evidence Not Seen by Darlene Diebler Rose. I listened to this book on audiobook a while back, and then I recently found it at a thrift store and grabbed it because I wanted it on my shelf, and I want to reread it and actually read this book and read the book myself. I should take some of these stickers off. But I loved her story. It was very inspirational. Brother Andrew, God's Smuggler. Tortured for Christ by Richard Warmbrand. Billy Sunday, Cross and the Switchblade, David Wilkerson. So I think this one and Run Baby Run are somehow connected. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like their stories are somehow connected. Anyway, The Heavenly Man, Brother Yun. This is just a study guide for my Bonhoeffer book, which you would have seen on the TBR shelf. The Road of Lost Innocence. As a girl, she was sold into sexual slavery, but now she rescues others. I have not read that one yet, but it looked very interesting. Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. Loved this book. Dear World, a Syrian girl's story of war and plea for peace. So now we're moving more into memoirs and biographies. Dick Van Dyke, My Lucky Life in and Out of Show Business. I laughed so much reading this book. He's one of my all-time favorite actors, and this book was just hilarious. I loved it. Francis Mays, Under the Tuscan Sun. This one made me want to sell everything and go fix up a villa in Italy. It was very interesting. I loved her writing. And There Was Light, the extraordinary memoir of a blind hero of the French resistance in World War II. Beautiful writing and an incredible story, actually. I really enjoyed that one. Straight On Till Morning. This is a biography of Beryl Markham, and I don't know much else about it. I've not read it yet, but I think it was free somewhere, and I picked it up because it looked interesting. The Explorer Gene. I've also not read this one yet, but it's on how 3 generations of one family went higher, deeper, further than any before. So I'm assuming just adventure travel stories. Flight of Passage by Rinker Buck. This is it's just a book on a daring flight across America in 1966 with a plane that they just fixed up themselves or something. I don't know. I love adventure stories like that, so I haven't read it yet, but it looked interesting. And Where the Wind Leads, a memoir, a refugee family's miraculous story of loss, rescue, and redemption. Haven't read that one yet, but anyway, Bandersnatch, C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, and the creative collaboration of Inklings. Have not read this one yet, but seemed interesting. Belle, The True Story of Dido Bell by Paula Byrne. Loved the movie. The book I enjoyed because it's definitely more accurate, I guess, than the movie. The writing style was just a little difficult to read, but still an incredible true story. 127 Hours Between a Rock and a Hard Place. Have not read that yet. It's on my list, obviously. No Shortcuts to the Top, Climbing the World's 14 Highest Peaks. So I was purchasing these books when I was really into hiking, and I still love hiking. I just don't do it anymore. Also, we left Colorado now. But I do want to read those stories. And then the chunker, Friedrich Chopin, A Life and Times. And then this is an older biography, The Life and Times of Chopin. All right, moving on now to my, let's focus here, to my history books. I tried to do these chronologically, but there might be there's probably some switch up somewhere. So don't critique me too hard, because these aren't permanent. I'm still going to be switching some things around. But anyway, just A Modern History of Europe, SPQR, A History of Ancient Rome, The Roman Way, The History of the Peloponnesian War, Joan of Arc, The Mayflower, Angelic Music. This is about an instrument that Ben Franklin invented, which I actually had no idea about. Haven't read it yet. Most of these I've not read yet, so there we go. In God We Trust. This is, I think this is one I got from my dad, actually, but it's a book on how the founding fathers, started America on Christian principles. A People's History of the United States, A Most Fortunate Ship, Old Ironsides, History of Georgia. I'm from Georgia, so I had these books when I was a teacher, and just for the history of Georgia and everything. The Lost Towns of North Georgia. This is an old atlas that I found. It's upside down, but showing, I think it's from the 1930s, so, or 1920 actually, okay. Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting find. And then The Trail of Tears, None Died in Vain. So this is a book on the American Civil War, and then they met at Gettysburg. Also haven't read those. 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup. What an incredible story, and heartbreaking as well. The U.S. Constitution and Other Key American Writings. So this is also just one I haven't read, but wanted it for the references and stuff to be able to refer to, I guess, for school, for homeschooling in the future, hopefully. Letters from a Nation, a collection of extraordinary American letters. This one sounds really interesting, but I haven't read it yet. More adventure stories. The Voyage of the Armada, the Spanish story. Have not read yet. Endurance, Shackleton's Incredible Voyage. These two are my husband's, who is a space nerd, but I actually like the Apollo stories as well. But I haven't read these yet, but I want to read them. Apollo 13, Apollo 8, and then Laura Hillenbrand's Seabiscuit. Have not read that one yet, but anyway. Okay, so then I have my many World War II books and things about the Holocaust. This one is actually World War I, Silent Night, the Christmas Eve truce that happened. Then I have The Secret Rescue, The Untold Story of American Nurses and Medics Behind Nazi Lines. Have not read this one. The Bielski Brothers, The True Story of the Three Men Who Defied the Nazis, Saved 1,200 Jews, and Built a Village in the Forest. I have also not read that one. The Anatomy of the Nuremberg Trials. I have not read that one. That's a chunker. The Spy and the Traitor. Have not read that one. Heroes of the Holocaust. I have read that one. Single-Handed. This is a biography. Oops. Of a Holocaust survivor, Korean war hero, and Medal Honor recipient. I have not read his story yet either. And then The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. Spitfire Pilot. I think this was one of my husband's books as well. So I haven't read that one yet. And then The Gestapo, The History of Horror. December 1941. This one was a very interesting read. So it goes through every single day of the month of December of 1941 and gives so many little fun details about like the cost of eggs or paper or whatever it was. It was just very minute details about life in December of 1941, and then obviously Pearl Harbor and how the United States entered the war, all of that. It was very interesting. It is a very long read, but I really enjoyed it if you are a history nerd like me. And then Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. This is the story of Louis Zamperini. Absolutely love this book and the movies. It's an incredible story. So I also got this one that Louis Zamperini wrote, but I have not read this one yet. And then The Zookeeper's Wife, Diane Ackerman. That was an interesting story because it is set in the Polish zoo, which I didn't visit the zoo, but I don't even know, is it actually in existence? But there was a park near the zoo that I visited in Warsaw. I don't know. I just love reading books about places I've been to, and that one was just very interesting. So then The Nazi Spy Master, The Life and Death of Admiral Wilhelm Canaris. Selected to Live. This is a true story about a girl who survived the Holocaust as well. I was Dr. Mengel's assistant, so this was written, a true story account, eyewitness account of the awful doctor who worked in and experimented on people in the Nazi prison camp Auschwitz. This book will make you want to throw up, I promise. I don't know if I'll ever read it again. It was awful. The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. The Boys in the Boat. Love this book. It was I still think about it to this day, and I read it many years ago. I just loved their story. It's incredible. And now the movie came out, which the movie is really great, but they left out so many details. So read the book. The Nazi Officer's Wife, How One Jewish Woman Survived the Holocaust. I've not read this one yet, but it looked very interesting. And then The Faithful Spy, a true story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer and the plot to kill Hitler. That one was very interesting graphic novel. Flyboys, a true story of courage. I've not read this one yet either. It Happened in Italy, untold stories of how the people of Italy defied the horrors of Holocaust. This was a very interesting, incredible read. I loved it. These last two books are my husband's as well, but The End Is Always Near by Dan Carlin. Apocalyptic Moments from the Bronze Age Collapse to Nuclear Near Misses. We both love history, and my husband loves to listen to his podcast. Hardcore History Podcast. And I've actually listened to a few episodes, which I really enjoy, but it's really heavy on the history, so... And then On a Sea of Glass, The Life and Loss of RMS Titanic. My husband also loves the Titanic and knows everything about it pretty much. So this is a book I got him for Christmas one year, or someone got him for Christmas. I can't remember if it's me, but it's a very, very detailed book on the Titanic. But anyway. I also forgot to do an outro for this whole video, so I will just quickly do it here. I hope you guys enjoyed this really long, in-depth video. If you have any questions about any of the books that you saw, anything really, just let me know in the comments below and I will try to answer them, or I can also maybe do a short video, or like the shorts video on YouTube, going into depth about a certain book. If you want to know about edition, where I got it, whatever question it is, or if you want any of my thoughts on any of the books that you saw that I read, and all of that. So yeah, any questions, honestly. But yeah, anyway, again, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.